to welcome everyone to our City Council meeting. For the record, it is Tuesday, August 9th. It's a few minutes after 3. We'll start with roll call attendance. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Cavanagh.
Here.
Councilmember Milam.
Here.
Councilmember Byrd.
Here.
Councilmember Palmer.
Here.
Councilmember Borton.
Here.
Mayor DeVeard.
Here.
And Councilmember Little Roberts is absent.
Thank you. Item number 2 is a Pledge of Allegiance. If you all rise and join us in the pledge to our flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, item 3 is adoption of the agenda.
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Byrd.
4A, the resolution number is 16-1153. 4M, the resolution number is 16-1154. On 9B, the resolution number is 16-1155. And the proposed resolution number on 11B is 16-1156. With that, I move we approve the agenda as published.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda as stated. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All ayes, motion carried. Item 4 is our consent agenda.
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Byrd.
as stated earlier, 4A, the resolution number is 16-1153, and 4M, the resolution number is 16-1154. And with that, I move we approve the consent agenda as published, and for the mayor to sign, the clerk to attest.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, will you call roll?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Cavanagh.
Aye.
Councilmember Milam.
Aye.
Councilmember Palmer.
Aye.
Councilmember Borton.
Aye.
Councilmember Byrd.
Aye.
All ayes, motion carried. There were no items moved from the consent agenda, so we'll move into item 6 under action items. We have our public hearing for the program year 2016 of our CDBG action plan. I'll turn this over to Sean.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council. Appreciate the opportunity to come today. This is our culminating event for the action plan cycle for 2016. It ends in a public hearing, and whatever discussion council may have and moving funds around and talking about the projects that are going to be had, that will happen tonight. So I'd also like to thank the people that are going to show up and have probably showed up, signed up to give public testimony. We rarely get that with CDBG, so it's actually good to get that feedback. So I want to make sure that we acknowledge those individuals.
Thank you.
So for 2016, our priorities remain the same based on our consolidated plan. Decent housing and public facilities where we can have them. And also we have our public service endeavors that we try to expand and do some different things each year. This year we have a couple that are going to be carryover from previous years, as well as one new one to talk about. This is the recommended allocations as a breakdown. Of note here again, $356,000 roughly is what our 2016 allocation is entitled to be, which is higher than we've ever had. About 7.5% higher than last year as well. Just briefly, here's our low to moderate income area again with percentages so that we can look at the block groups, and so you can see that. This will become very relevant in the next slide here. This is the geographic distribution of funds, where those projects generally are going to be carried out within the LMI. It does happen that sometimes projects get carried out outside the LMI depending on the type. The ones that are listed here in the upper right, those are not being carried out outside of the City of Meridian. The offices just happen to be outside the City of Meridian, and we don't know yet where those projects are going to impact. They're home buying, things like that, things of that nature, and so that can happen anywhere in the city. First up is program administration. Once again, just to make the point, this number is inflated last year, this year, and will be again next year because we have to do our 5-year consolidated planning. That starts now, so we use funds from 3 different years to budget for that, just because of the way that CDBG dollars has to be used for public service and for administrative dollars. You have to be very careful with not going over that 20% in any given year. So that will include staff time as well as all of the things that I do to include the consolidated plan, environmental reviews, as well as any fair housing opportunities that we engage with. So for our public service activities, once again, Meridian Food Bank, as we do most years, and the Boys and Girls Club is coming back as a scholarship program as their early risers and summer program to assist low-income families with children to attend those programs. The new one this year for us, and the new one for the City of Meridian, is Jesse Tree of Idaho, which is emergency assistance to families with children who are at risk of becoming homeless. We have one public facility, specifically public facility being done by the city from Public Works. The area of Todd Way and Chateau Drive near Barbara Morgan STEM Academy, they've determined it's part of our low-income area. It's that northwestern quadrant there, but it also has some it lacks some coverage, and so Austin Peterson has put together a couple of maps where they'd like to do some streetlights there. And that's the start of a much larger, much broader project that he'd like to look at for all of the LMI and try to carry that through. We have 2 housing activities, which is what we had last year, these same organizations. One of them is the Housing Authority for Home Buyer Assistance, and the other is Neighborhood Housing Solutions, which is a 501c3. The 2 operate very differently, but within and with different universes of potential low-income individuals to assist. But it's just it's noteworthy to say one of them is a state agency or a county agency rather, and one of them is a nonprofit that does a similar type of a program. Also listed as a housing activity for infrastructure, BCD and BCD LLC and the housing company. This is a partnership with the city to build and to design sidewalk and any needed infrastructure there, and it is in support of a potential housing development, multifamily that would be right there on 2.5 Street. Their entire process is tied to the state agency, Idaho Housing and Finance Association, for them to secure through their application process low-income housing tax credits. For alternate activities, as you remember last year, we decided to plug a few of these in so that we don't run into another community center facade upgrade type of a situation. So we plug these into the action plan, we ask council to approve them, and if another project falls short or we need to look for one, we don't have to hurry up and find one and come to council and go through the process again. We've already approved it, we've already had the public take a look at it. Everyone has approved these projects going forward. The first one is street lights. As I've already mentioned, Austin Peterson is looking at the rest of the LMI. So should we end up with funds in the rest of the year or a coming year to go back to this action plan, we could trigger $40,000 to again reinvest in that streetlight program. And for the Meridian Development Corporation, they asked for funds to do sidewalk as well. Their ability to do that sidewalk hinges on ACHD doing a scope of the 2.5 Street area where they're trying to do that at. So depending on what ACHD comes back with and what that would cost, MDC will better be able to make a decision. So I want to make sure we program that in. Should we be able to use that funds? Should MDC find a number that works out from ACHD? The public comment period was opened on July 5th. Up until this point, there's 10 public comments. Those were included in the packets that council received in public record. Any other public comments that we received today at the hearing or at 6 later on this evening will be included in the action plan for submission. So a few notes, just so that we make sure we have these out of the way before the hearing starts. Any changes today made through funding by City Council will take place. I will do whatever Council decides and add that to the action plan to submit. So however that conversation works, whether it is as it is now or whether we change that. And I want to make this very clear, too, to both the individuals who are going to provide testimony and to council. The city is not asking City Council to approve or deny any housing development whatsoever. This is for the action plan only, and this action plan project is for a sidewalk development or a sidewalk project. So, Madam Mayor, these are the requested actions. The first one is to solicit public comment. The other 3 we probably won't get to until we close the public comment hearing. And
Okay,
without that, Madam Mayor, I have no questions. Or if you have any questions, please let me know.
thank you. Any questions from council at this point?
I have none, Mayor.
None right now.
Thank you very much. We did have several people sign up to testify. Again, this will be kept open and entertain additional public comment at 6 o'clock. Okay, so Warren Grover signed up. Thank you for joining us.
Thank
If you'll
you, Madam
please
Mayor.
state your name and address for the record.
Warren Grover, 4654 West Hurst Drive in Meridian.
Thank you.
And I appreciate the chance to talk to you today. I'm against low-income housing in downtown Meridian. There are many people under the low-income level that are already buying homes in Meridian, and we don't need to subsidize those further. Also, I have a point of contention, I guess. At the last meeting, Doug Crowther of VECD said that federal subsidized housing is held to strict standards and tenants must be felony-free. Well, as most of you are probably aware, the Federal Department of Housing and Urban Development is doing social engineering and refusing grants to, or money to communities that do not follow their rules. And one of their new rules as of April 11th is that any landlords that they're warning the landlords that if they ban any renters with criminal convictions, that's a violation of the Fair Housing Act because they are disproportionately affecting minorities. So I don't see how those two statements can go together on something like this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I will just state for the public hearing on this, this is not about a housing project. This is about a sidewalk. The sidewalk that is being asked to fund is for 2nd and a Half Street, and it would be a part if there is a project on 2nd and a Half Street. But this sidewalk is an off-street improvement or an off-site improvement for that kind of project. And if you've been on 2nd and a Half Street, they don't have sidewalks. So just wanted to provide clarity on that.
Madam Mayor.
Mr. Palmer.
And to that point, at the last meeting, it was mentioned that our supporting this spending of this money would increase the odds of getting approval for the $6 million necessary to advance that project. And so I think the gentleman's comments were quite warranted in that if he doesn't want to see that project take place in the future, that the first step in making sure that that wouldn't be something that he'd want to have there would be stopping this, I guess, very instance. That if we don't support this, they're less likely to have it later. But if we support this, they're more likely to get the funds to build it later. So his comments made sense to me.
But the design of a sidewalk on 2nd and a Half Street, regardless of an apartment or of whatever development occurs, there are sidewalk needs on 2nd and a Half Street. And so this is a part of 2nd and a Half Street.
Madam Mayor, follow up? And to that point, there's need for a sidewalk in lots of places. The purpose of this sidewalk would be to better facilitate that project later.
Okay, next we have William Thomas Howie signed up.
No need for me to say anything, because I want to talk about the low-income housing.
If that project were to be proposed, there would be a public hearing then as well. So again, the public testimony on this is for the project that was submitted in front of us for sidewalk improvement on 2nd and a Half Street. So as Mr. Palmer pointed out during the public comment a month ago, it was stated that this would be part of a grant or a application for federal funding for a bigger project, for a project that would have to come in front of the public again to this council in terms of a public hearing. And I would say that we would welcome comments that you might have today, or to hold those for a project once there is an application. Because at this point, there is not an application to the city. Okay?
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
just to that point a little bit, we have talked with VCD potentially about their site plan. Like you just stated, we have not seen an application submitted. But the zoning out there today on 2.5 Street would allow multifamily as an outright principally permitted use, so there would not be another public hearing, depending on what they propose. If they came in with a site plan that requested, height exceptions or setback variances or those types of things, there could potentially be public hearings. But as an outright allowed use, entitled use on that property, it's zoned today for multifamily. So not going to say there wouldn't be a public hearing, but they could design something and do a multifamily project on that site that wouldn't have a public hearing.
So it's an allowed use at this point.
Again, depending on how it's designed and situated, yes, multifamily is a principally permitted use in the current zoning district on that property.
Okay.
Madam Mayor.
Yes, Mr. Kavanaugh.
To Caleb's point, I think to the comment that you made earlier, if any one of our member of our community is here to provide testimony on this, we'd welcome that testimony today, especially in light that there might not be potential for that testimony in the future. So we wouldn't want anyone here that's here today to not feel like they had the opportunity to share their voice on this. It's my opinion.
So, Reverend Howie, if you would like to make comment, I would certainly welcome that.
Madam Mayor, council members, I thank you for this opportunity.
If you could please state your name and address for the record.
William Thomas Howie, a retired pastor.
Okay. And your address?
Address 641 West Franklin Road, PMB 26.
Thank you.
Let me just say, I've read some of Ty's comments on the low-income housing. I agree with those comments, and I'm well aware that there's a need. I'm well aware that there's hundreds of Meridian residents who rely on low-income housing and housing vouchers. And according to the Boise City Ada County Housing Authority, there are 155 Meridian residents who use housing vouchers to help pay the rent. But I'm old enough and wise enough and aware enough to realize that if we build a low-income housing project here in Meridian, it won't be long and that project will be nearly filled with refugee resettlement people. I'm not against immigration, because as soon as you say refugee resettlement, you might be against that. People think you're against immigration. I'm not against immigration, legal immigration run by the Congress. This refugee resettlement, however, is run by the UN, and member nations just take however many people the UN tells them to take. So in this case, I'm asking this city council not to build this low-income housing project. You've heard the phrase, if we build it, they will come. Please don't.
Elaine Gardowski. Turn yours over to Bill. Okay.
Because he's going to speak on our behalf.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor.
Good
and
afternoon.
Council. My name is William Gardowski. I live at 1620 East 2.5 Street. We moved there in 1991. We've been property owners since 92. We're adamantly against the low-income housing. I'm all for sidewalks. I've contacted Ada County Highway District about speed bumps even because there's a lot of speeding. There's no sidewalks. There's a school. There are children there. I'm not against the sidewalk whatsoever. The street isn't safe, really, for people walking. The one thing you need to keep in mind when you think about the low-income housing, number one, 2.5 Street's small. The school at the end, Coal Valley, there's about 75, 80 cars a day, morning and night, additional on the street when they're in school. There's no stoplight. You can't get out on Fairview. The street's narrow. If you put in a housing project, you're going to have another 150 to 200 automobiles a day on 2.5 Street. But as far as safety and sidewalk, if the sidewalk was there and didn't go any farther, it needs it on both sides. I'm absolutely for making the streets safer because there's a lot of children. I've seen almost accidents. I sit out on the front and I watch accidents all the time happen and trying to happen. But as far as the safety and the sidewalk, it would be a good idea if it stopped there. But we're adamantly against the law. And like I said, I don't think the street would carry it. And you're going to figure another, with the school going in the winter and housing projects, you got another 300 cars a day on that street. No one will ever get out on Fairview. So from a safety point of view, sidewalks would be a good idea if it stopped there. But I just want to let my voice be heard to you gentlemen and ladies, and I appreciate the opportunity. I'd like to see 2.5 stay the way it is. It's been fairly peaceful, and I do know we live next door to Cherry Lane Apartments. There are a fair amount of people that have time on their hands and nothing to do except annoy people. And speaking from experience and not prejudging anybody, I know what happens when people sit and collect their checks and do nothing. And I'd hate to see that happen. And I also think that any project that close to Maine, I think would deteriorate that whole area if we're talking a lot of units. But make the street safe, yes, for sure. And I appreciate the time and chance to talk to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you for
You guys
being
have a
here.
nice day.
Merlin Schmeckpepper? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor. How are you today?
I am good.
Council members, my name is Merlin Schmeckpepper. I reside at 157 East Ada Street, Meridian, Idaho.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I guess at this point in time, I'm about as confused as it appears you all are. Okay, we started out with the sidewalk project. It's going to bubble into low-income, medium-income housing. That begs to ask about resettlement, refugee resettlement. And it sounds to me like there might be a little skullduggery going on here amongst you folks. He brought some clarity to it. The map over here was all about where they're putting the low-income housing. All those little green dots. Nothing said about a sidewalk. And Madam Mayor, you brought that forward. Thank you, Ty, for clarifying it a little bit, but it's still not real clear. What is clear to me right now is that you're going to push this sidewalk program through so that later on you can get this government dole, whatever it is, for low-income housing without any approvals necessarily, as this gentleman brought out. Maybe, maybe not. First of all, public hearings are one thing, but you know what? You folks we're all hired to protect the city. Please do your job. I oppose low-income housing. I've watched the Washington court, or whatever it's called these days. I've watched it deteriorate. I see the police cars there constantly. Now, do you really want to do that, more of that, to the city of Meridian? I ask that. I stand opposed. Thank you for hearing me.
Dustin Emmon? Good afternoon.
Hello, Mayor, Council. I live at 2586 West Misty Drive, Meridian. I'm against low-income housing. This is all about the camel getting its nose in the tent. The sidewalk leads to the housing project. The housing project leads to other needs for low-income persons. We don't have a bus. Meridian needs to expand bus service for the low-income houses. Meridian needs to expand this service and that service, and so on and so forth. And pretty soon, we're out of money. This is all about money and the camel getting in the tent. Thank you.
Thank you. Those were the folks that were signed up. Is there any other member that would like to provide testimony at this time?
Could I add something?
Sorry. Yeah, we'll get back to you, Bill.
Madam Mayor, council members, I apologize for my appearance today, but just came in off of a job site. But I wanted to appear today.
Can you please state your name and address? For the
Martin
record?
Schindler, 6835 North Topaz, Meridian, Idaho.
Thank you.
Anyway, I wanted to I thank everyone for their comments, but I also have born in Boise, grew up in a larger city, and I understand a couple things that we're missing a few clearly unidentified individuals that aren't here today, and that's the business people that have service needs within the city of Meridian. And so one is I am for the sidewalk extension. I think that's a safety issue, and I see that throughout the city. And I would appreciate that money being spent in doing so. I also see that we have a workforce issue, and we talk about low-income housing, but we're talking about a very small percentage, is my understanding. And I think we brought the word low income, and I don't necessarily feel that way if the value of the property is driven higher, and depending on how city planners would actually handle the physical characteristics and what would appear there. So we consider it in today's language, workforce housing. And workforce housing is in need on several different means. One, the average service individual's wages are around $7.50 an hour. They peak out at about $9.75 an hour, and that's some data that I've taken locally. And I know that from having people that work for me that are labor-style individuals, or maybe they work in the kitchen and serve or prepare our meals at night or whatever it may be, but they're not paid a lot of money. And we do need those individuals in the core of our city to help support the services we need to build a city and to keep our downtown core thriving. And that's all I have. Any questions?
No, thank you, Marty.
You're welcome.
Okay. We had a follow-up comment.
Yeah, Madam Mayor and Council,
If you'll wait and comment when you're in front of the microphone.
I just wanted to add one more thing. I don't have children in school. My son does. As far as I know, every school within any kind of 20-minute drive of this area is packed. There's no, so we have to talk about busing also on that. But if you want to do safety issues to 2.5, that's perfectly fine. But the school thing's another issue because they're all full. And I don't know where they would go. I think they'd be better served to put the project out somewhere else farther. But that's what I wanted to add.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay, we will again take public comment at 6 o'clock and thank the folks that came today to provide your feedback at this point. So this item will be continued to the end of our agenda. Okay, item 7 is under department reports. Item A is through our Community Development and Economic Development Department Strategic Update. Hello, Bruce.
Madam Mayor, council members, I've decided I don't want to give an annual update. The next item on the agenda is much more concern to me. I'm going to do everything I can to torpedo the appointment of C.J. Coles as city clerk. I ask you, how dare you? I have a secret dossier if you're
I'm
interested.
sorry, if you will please restrain from.
Seriously, CJ is a big loss to our department, but we're keeping him, I hope, with the city, and we're very proud of him and very proud that we'll continue to work with him. I would say that the city clerk's office knowledge and from the boots on the ground planning effort that we have here in the city just increased a whole heck of a lot with CJ going over there. So. The first part of this is going to go very quickly because the first couple of slides I do, every year I've done this. It's always a reminder why we're here. And I have to remind myself of that every day, and I think it's good for us as a group to remind ourselves of it at least once a year. It's actually been close to a year and a half. Our update last year was in May, so a little bit more time has passed, and a little bit more, a few events have taken place. We're going to talk about our staffing changes, as I do every year, talk about our development market and how busy we are, thank goodness. We're going to talk a little bit about some updates and some special projects we've been working on and will be working on. Review what happened in economic development over the past year. And then move on to what I see as some of the threats, at least a couple, for the next year that we need to be responding to. Finally, your thoughts and direction, and please, I invite you to interrupt me at any point. Any questions, any dialogue, I have no problem with that whatsoever. Let's get into it. We exist to give the mayor, and by extension council, that control over the permitting process. We have to remember that back a few years ago, the building and development services function was in Public Works, planning was its own small department, economic development was in the mayor's office. By putting those things together, we extend the reach and effectiveness of everything we're trying to do with economic development. You can actually view community development as being an extension of economic development, especially when you look at economic development as being more than recruiting folks or retaining businesses. It's also about the quality of life and our investment. So we have 3 divisions, and I love to show this graphic, which basically shows the development process, all the way from when a business is recruited and begins looking for a place to locate, down to when they begin to move in and we want to retain them in our city. Everything in between. So economic development can be involved very much at the beginning, very much at the end. You see planning starting to come in as developers start to come in and speak with us about where they want to locate, what's the entitlement. We offer business assistance from all of our divisions at pre-application meetings. Under planning and infrastructure, both planning and development services are involved. Ditto the entitlement process. Building permits, you really see the building function, development services coming into play there. So all 3 divisions, along with our partners in fire, police, public works, the Ada County Highway District, all contribute across the board. A couple of staffing changes. We've got some awesome folks that have been around, less than a year now. Kim Tabarini is our administrative assistant. She's been a great addition. She has a long career in business already and kind of really brings a real business approach to to our administrative tasks. She's our only generalist for administration, but she's been a wonderful addition to our group. She just got off probation, but with flying colors. You know Josh Beach, associate planner. He's been around for a while. He may not seem that new to you because you see him at so many hearings, but he's been also a really great addition, and like Kim, he's really a part of the fabric of community development now. Stacy Hirsch is our land development support specialist. She helps our land division folks with track and arrange for sureties. She works quite a bit with finance and with the city clerk's office. And really what she does is she queues up those applications, those files, so that our folks can, in the land division group, the analysts, can actually do the work of reviewing them. Finally, CJ. I'm not going to talk about CJ. I already have.
Well, that's good, because I would have pointed out you stole him from us. So, it's karma.
Awkward. There you go. We've been talking a lot about karma lately. So we're happy to have these newer members of our group. What did we talk about were threats about a year and a half ago? So what did we say then, and what did we do about it? One of the things we said was we're running lean. Pointed out the Development Services Fund, basically Community Development's fund, has had the smallest growth in overall budget over the past 5 years, just 1% growth. And Community Development has had the lowest increase in FTEs over the past 5 years of any city department. We opted not to add additional staff beyond the land development support specialist, Stacy's position. But ongoing, we need to, and I'll come back to this, we need to monitor this and then look at staffing needs for next budget year and possibly future budget years as well. And I mentioned earlier, very, very heavy workload, which continues for the subdivision infrastructure review. That's our land group. In 2015, we had over $29 million in outstanding sureties. These are performance instruments, money that's been put up so that infrastructure is put into place properly. And there's a liability for the city, there's a complexity for the city around having that big outstanding collection of sureties. Previously, we had that processing handled by a generalist within community development, by the admin too. And yet they were dealing with specialists, such as folks in public works and in finance, the clerk's office. And developers at that time were complaining about the length of time to release sureties. It's gotten a lot better because of your help, not this coming budget year, but the previous one. We were able to hire Stacy to concentrate on that workload, queue up those the sureties and the applications, and that $29 million number in outstanding sureties has been cut in half. So again, this is not a measure of backlog as much as it is the fact that we want to be able to move these off as quickly as possible, and we weren't able to get to them until you all helped us enhance our staffing. For the CDBG program, we told you before the budget hearings in May of 2015 that we were being administered by a part-time staff member, only 19 hours a week. The regulatory and reporting burden from HUD continues to grow. We said we may need to enhance the position, and you helped us by doing that. Again, through the budget, we're able to add hours so that Sean now is around 30 hours a week maximum. We also said, was topical then, it's topical now, that housing diversity can be a threat. The lack of it can be a threat. Trying to get more diverse creates tension, and in particular multifamily and smaller single-family lots. We were really playing catch-up then. We still are, but the multifamily numbers have dropped off a little bit. And it's completely natural and understandable that there would be tensions around that type of growth. So our response has been to emphasize education efforts. keep the UDC up to date, and we've been doing that with your help and with the UDC committee, and also then to promote fair housing, because as the law of the land, the Fair Housing Act is very important. And of course, we, like many communities, have committed to affirmatively further fair housing. Talk a little bit about the development market in Meridian. We just have, these are mostly building permits, large and small, just an example, just a sample of things that have come through. You know, some very, very small things all the way from, you know, you don't love to see pawn shops, but we love to see things like primary health come in, the indoor shooting range, you know, C-stores, Timber Grove townhomes. And then move on to planning approvals. Some of these, of course, are not built yet. We have a very large RV dealer coming in right next to Camping World on Overland, Bish's RV. Harmony Hill Assisted Living, St. Ignatius School is a big addition to our community. We've got a lot of great new businesses that either are locating or already have opened up in downtown, including Primary Health, Human Being, Frankie's Java. There'll be a coffee shop in the Hub building, and Caleb's Chop Shop, which is, if you haven't been in there, it's a really cool barber shop. And then larger things like the Ida Pine facility, where we're converting industrial land along the railroad tracks into a high-tech wood products manufacturer. The Meridian office, you're very familiar with that. That's going on in their 10-mile area. And Winco Foods on Overland as well. Let's look at some numbers. New single family. The previous year, and this is basically now year to date and comparing to last year, August to August. The previous year we had 943 single family homes. This year we had almost 1,300. Big workload there. The value of single family homes, the total assessed value has increased from $243 million to $316 million. Multifamily has fallen off a bit, although we're still very busy with multifamily. We went from the previous year 558 units to this year 120 units. And as you can see, there's also been a big fall off in the value of the newly permitted multifamily. Oops, let me go back. For commercial's tracking pretty much steady as it was before. As you can see from some of these numbers, new commercial value is up a bit from 74 million to about 82 million. The square footage, ironically, is a little bit down, but these numbers are pretty well consistent with the previous year. I'm not Bob McQuaid, and I'm not going to get very deep into this, but I thought it was interesting. Brian McClure came up with the total citywide assessed value of all of the land and improvements in Meridian. And yes, that's right. That's $10 billion, almost $11 billion in value. Obviously, that doesn't equate directly to what people pay on taxes. That's a complicated thing. But you know, going from 9.7, almost $9.8 billion to close to $11 billion for this current year really tells you all of the small decisions, and the big ones too, that we do add up to something big. This is just another measure of the size of our community. We have, as a result of the Development Services Fund, been able to return about $15 million to the general fund. Obviously, that goes up and that goes down. You can see some lean years there where nothing was returned to the general fund, 08 through 10. But most years we do, and again, this is not a profit. This is the amount of money collected through the Development Services Fund for all permitting activities. Let's do a couple of updates. First off, we talked a lot about our permit fees. We haven't changed them since 2007, almost, going on a decade. So we asked the building division staff, Sam Zahorka and Brent Bjornson, to take a look at how we were comparing with our neighboring jurisdictions. And I think the results are interesting. So for commercial permit fees, and again, what we did is we try to get this to apples, we assumed a 5,000 square foot tenant improvement of a particular type that you see here. These numbers do not include impact fees, sewer, assessment fees, any of that. These are strictly building permit fees. You'll see that it ranges from the City of Eagle charging about $6,600 per single-family home, all the way down to Ada County, $5,300, and we're right pretty much smack dab in the middle, right just under $6,000. Slightly above City Boise, but that's so close, it's almost the same number.
Isn't that a commercial, Bruce? Not
Oh, I'm
single-family?
sorry, excuse me. Councilmember Byrd, yes, I'm sorry, I'm thinking about my next slide, which is single family. Yes, this is per 5,000 square foot improvement per the notes you see down there at the bottom. So you see that we're right in the middle of the pack when it comes to commercial fees. For residential, we're the cheapest. It ranges from City of Eagle, $3,600.
We're the best value.
Correct the record. We are the best value. Thank you, Mayor. And so it's interesting that not only are we doing more in the way of single family and other types of development as well, but that we are the least expensive as well. I bring this up because we want to take in the coming year, I think it's high time to take a look at our fees. And what you're seeing here is simply a comparison to our local peers. If you really want to get into this, you should take a look at what it actually costs you to perform the service, that is, to deliver the permit with assumptions like these. It's what I call a cost of service study. And once you determine what it actually costs you for each permit type, then you have a fair basis for talking about changing the fees up or down. It's not a foregone conclusion, for instance, that because we're less expensive than these other jurisdictions that we would want to change those fees. Simply that it's recognizing that perhaps we're commercial is making a bit more money for us and covering the cost of the organization that we have, perhaps a bit more than single family is. So what we'd like to do and report back to you in the coming year is a little bit more about fees, perhaps a fee structure that makes a little bit more sense, and begin to have that dialogue with the development community and with City Council as well. So that's the reason I bring it up. And I'll just close that piece of it by showing the new commercial on the left. And again, Meridian is the gray bar on the right-hand side. So you can see we're pretty much middle of the pack for new commercial. New residential, we're lower than anyone else. Special projects. Boy, this is a big shift here. Lighter, quicker, cheaper on Idaho Avenue. We're really happy with the results. I think you've seen that Idaho Avenue has a different feel now. It feels a lot better to walk around, to hang out on. And with some of the new businesses that will be coming online here shortly, I think we'll be seeing a lot more activity. You know, I think this is an example of the public sector, in this case the city and MDC, pooling money to set the table. Now we really need the community to come in and dine, as it were, and activate the street. And so we hope to be hearing about some events upcoming, perhaps a street party, some sort of a celebration that would really show that Idaho Avenue is, in the words of my favorite urban designer, it's a great piece of street. The great thing is that these improvements have been made very inexpensively to demonstrate the concept. If for some reason things don't work out and people don't like the results, it's also low cost to go back to the way it was. That's what lighter, cheaper, quicker is all about. We have had convened a group called the Development Services Advisory Committee. This is a group of, you would recognize these folks, developers, builders, engineers, architects, that many they're some of the most frequent folks up here at this podium and in our office. We also have some representatives among that group from the BCA and our UDC review committee. At the first meeting we had with them on July 7th, we said everything was on the table. If you want to bellyache, go ahead and bellyache. We invited the feedback on everything that we're involved with, at least in permitting, all the way from the planning process to subdivisions and platting and the building permit process. And I'll get to some of the feedback we had in just a minute, but we laid out some of the roles, which I think are interesting. For DSAC members, we got an agreement that their role in this process is to raise issues, tell us what's not working, tell us what is working, and we asked them not to rush to the solutions. Don't say, community development, you should do this. Instead, tell us what success looks like, that we would be successful if this preferred outcome actually took place. And then we would then bring back the service improvements that we think meet those needs. We review that with the DSAC members, and perhaps they would help us test those improvements. So staff's role, and as we did at this meeting, we listened. Our role is to take those preferred outcomes, understand the problems, and then design and propose solutions. Run those solutions by the committee, and you could implement minor changes to pilot projects. For example, it could be a policy change, it could be a code amendment, possibly something with the UDC or some of the other codes. It could be a process improvement, all the way from something very, very quick and easy to a pilot project where we might be asking some of the members of the DSAC to be guinea pigs and help us test some of these improvements. Because what you don't want to do is create two or more problems for every problem you solve. So some of the feedback we had. The great thing about these folks is that they started off by complimenting us. And it really didn't go downhill from there. They said, you're the best city we work with. One of the comments was, I can always count on Meridian to be there to solve the problem. Your approach is to solve the problem and not just say it's not consistent with the code, it's against the code. You don't leave it there. You problem solve. And they don't get that from other jurisdictions. Some of the concerns that were raised that we'll be talking with them about at the August 31st meeting, our next meeting, will be some concerns with our new contract plan reviewers and inspectors about some disconnects that they're feeling. They talk about staff taking the Meridian way and living the Meridian way in our professional lives every day and in our interactions with them. They want to feel more of that from our contractors. Concerns overall about the speed of the platting process and some ideas about that, and issues with certain development agreement conditions. So we're going to be working through a few of these things. The meeting was very heartening. The great thing was these folks are very much a part of our industry, very much a part of our community, and they're here to engage with us in a productive way. Special projects, moving on. When we had the joint session with county commissioners, they brought this issue up. Basically, the fact that our city limits, I call it Swiss cheese. We have, as you can see from this map, the white are individual parcels or collections of parcels that are not within the city but are surrounded by the city, in other words, enclaves. We agree with the county that this is an issue. And so the planning staff is going to be looking at these enclaves and working it's not just planners doing this. We'll be working with all of the affected departments, with Public Works, with fire, with police, with parks. This affects a lot of different folks. And the solution to each of these enclaves, whether it comes into the city now or later, or perhaps if not at all, really has to do with a lot of different departments looking at this. There's no question that we can have a more efficient delivery of services to our community by eliminating some of these enclaves. Some of them, though, as we discussed with the county commissioners, are problematic. And mentioned the joint session with the county. We want to move ahead with the development review improvements we proposed with Ada County. We've not heard back from the county yet officially, but we want to still move ahead with those improvements. We're continuing to evaluate both open space standards and residential dimensions with the UDC review group, and you all see the results of that every few months here with Bill Parsons. We're going to be looking at the comp plan designations near Overland and Eagle, I-84. We have a lot of low-density residential. Should it remain? You know, as you all know, we have the Jim Kistler's Norco headquarters will be coming in that area, and some other development. Do those land use designations in that area make sense given the development that we're having? And we're also going to be identifying some priority growth areas per the strategic plan for the city and defining some growth goals. And that brings up the Fields District. Mayor likes to talk about the Fields District as being the place where agriculture, economic development, and land use all come together. For that reason, to see, you know, as you all know, we have some ideas about what might happen in our the northwest part of Meridian along the county line. We want to see if there are ideas and energy around others doing something similar. So on September 14th, we're going to be convening a roundtable discussion called Growing Together. It'll be jointly hosted by Nampa and Meridian mayors. Both counties will be invited. We'll have a lot of stakeholders, including the Meridian Chamber, the Nampa Chamber, Greater Boise Chamber. For those of you that were at the leadership conference in Sun Valley, the focus was on food and agriculture. There's also now a food and ag committee, and a lot of those participants are going to be hopefully at this meeting. They'll certainly be invited. And we want to see if we can continue those ideas, but focus on that area where Nampa and Meridian eventually are coming together. And ultimately, we may be looking at a specific area plan, similar to what we did in 10 Mile and what we have in the downtown, for Meridian's far northeast area of impact, because there's a lot of interest in land being purchased there by developers. What is the future of this area?
Northwest.
I'm sorry, northwest, excuse me. Thought you had a question, council member, sorry.
I was just afraid we were going to tear up Chittenden and Eagle.
Yeah, no. So Caleb gives you all things transportation every few months. So I don't want to go a lot into this, but I won't. But we're really lucky to have somebody with Caleb's experience and expertise to engage with the community and with the transportation agencies. It's a lot of work, but it also pays big dividends for us, and it allows us to, in an intelligent way, place pressure on folks that allocate money and do the TIP for things like the Meridian interchange to be improved. So a lot of success stories come out of this effort. CDBG program, again, I'm not going to dwell on this slide because Sean just went through it with you. Economic development. This is actually a slide from a year and a half ago. And we talked about fostering collaboration to create a downtown startup center, develop opportunities at 10 Mile, and a downtown multi-use center. Well, I don't need to tell you that we've been able to achieve two of those things just in the last year and a half or so. New Ventures Lab is now operating. And yes, we are developing opportunities at 10 Mile through the creation of the Urban Renewal District and the corporate headquarters plan for there. Not so successful on the downtown multi-use center, but the energy is still there from the steering committee, which is made up of chamber members and other folks. And we're beginning to look at opportunities. There are developers that are interested in our downtown and possibly in some of these uses, and we'll see what happens with that. So it's good that we had two of these three. Two high priority objectives for Brenda's program. First, identify, develop, and use tools for successful attraction and retention of jobs. Second, close behind that, promote job growth by identifying and attracting businesses in technology, health sciences, animal science, and food production. We've been living these priorities, as you'll see. ICOM, great case in point. We after ICOM is developed, I think it will only really be the beginning of reinforcing some of the healthcare sectors and other sectors that we just mentioned. Very excited about that. As we mentioned before, the total capital investment is over $32 million, 90 jobs, average wage of $88,000. 10 Mile, don't need to talk about the Urban Renewal District. That's been handed off to the Meridian Development Corporation at this point. But my goodness, for starters, two corporate headquarters and additional development around that. We hear hints of a hotel as well. And so I think this is really just the beginning. I think we have a catalyst through urban renewal as part of that for development of this new portion of Meridian. Something you haven't seen much of is, and this comes down to business attraction. This is a database, online website that we subscribe to called OpSites. This allows us to highlight sites that we want to have developed, really those key sites in our downtown and elsewhere, and to shop them. And it's not just passively putting them out there online. The company we work with has a huge database of developers and site selectors that specialize in industrial, downtown redevelopment, urban housing, retail, you name it. And so we actually push through email these opportunities out to developers who might actually be interested in them. So it's not so much a shotgun approach as it is a very, very finely tuned approach. We've really just gotten up and running with this and beginning to build on it, and we're expecting again to see it reap benefits in the coming year or so. Job creation. We had over 1,000 new jobs in 2015, 70 new businesses, 223 new jobs in professional, scientific, and technical sectors, and obviously low unemployment and an increase overall in individual wages. Let's talk about two threats, and then I'm going to conclude and ask for your thoughts. Just make sure I'm on the slide here. We mentioned that there's heavy development pressure in our extreme northwest of our area of impact. We do have some services out there, for instance, sewer, but some are lagging, and rightly so, police and fire. So there's sort of a disconnect here. We did have a development application west of McDermott, which was denied by council, partly because of concerns about those services. And then against that, we've got Highway 16 eventually being developed, and US 2026 with the pressure to improve that corridor. What do? Well, the first thing is the Growing Together Roundtable to see if others share our concerns. We need to coordinate with all the service providers that are affected, and some good old-fashioned land use planning, perhaps a specific area plan for the area that we've been calling the Fields District, perhaps other areas. Really, the roundtable will help us start down some of these paths if that's the direction that we're going to go. Finally, as far as a threat, I have to keep going back to retaining folks and keeping staff where it should be. Really, the emphasis is on planning at this point. We are experiencing heavy volumes. The private sector, and this always happens when the real estate market takes off, they're recruiting. More is being asked of our staff, not just planners, but others as well. We're going to stay, as Caleb says, lean and mean, but we may also be looking at additional staff or other resources for the next budget year. And you've been quiet. That's everything I had to say. I'd love to hear thoughts or questions.
Thank you, Bruce. Mr. Palmer.
Madam Mayor, Bruce, towards the beginning of your presentation, you said we don't like to see pawn shops. Why is that?
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Palmer, I suppose they're just not my favorite sort of land use. I'm not wild about vape stores either. It's more of an editorial comment than anything else.
Okay.
Other questions?
Madam Mayor,
Kavner?
just a couple of comments, and I was fortunate. Bruce talked through a lot of his presentation with me earlier today, and I think it's important to, if we're going to, for me to take something away from your presentation is in light of all the growth and the success that your department has seen over the past year. To your point, you've continued to operate lean and mean and return dollars back to the city. We recognize not all of our departments have that luxury of returning dollars to the general fund, but I appreciate you and your staff's hard work to really kind of embody the Meridian way. So I appreciate your hard work and all of your staff's hard work as well.
Thank you.
I would just add on something that came out in your stakeholder group in terms of solution. Your departments are very solution oriented, and that is appreciated. I've heard that said out in the community, that rather than walking in and having no as the first word out in response to questions, it's how can we see how we can make this work. And to council, we had a meeting with each of our departments that have some kind of a relationship with the West Ada County School District. And I was very proud of those partnerships and how solution-oriented not only community development is, but all of our departments in terms of how can we develop better working relationships with those critical partners that have everything to do with our quality of life and providing services to our citizens. And I do believe that your staff really embodies the Meridian way and trying to provide those timely responses, but also spending enough time with it to be thorough and find other options that can have a desired impact on the person that's standing in front of you. Too often that doesn't happen, and I'm proud that that is the way that your staff operates. So big kudos to all of you. We appreciate that. You probably don't hear it often enough. It's easier to complain than to reiterate when you see good things happen. But I think you are a lean department, and you still take that necessary time to seek to understand before you give your answer. That's unique.
Madam Mayor, further to your point, these folks already had this mentality when I arrived, and it actually amazed me. There was another jurisdiction not anywhere close by that I worked at when I actually heard a senior staff member, very talented person, urban designer, tell a developer, that's a great idea, but it's against the code. And that was supposed to be the end of the conversation. And I had the conversation with him and the rest of the staff after that if you believe it's a good idea and it's good for the community, you're duty bound to find a solution. And if the code is the issue, a code amendment, a change, working within any flexibility you might have within the code. You can't just leave it there. And so that took some real corporate culture retooling. Didn't have to do that here. And that's why I'm so grateful for this team. And it really comes down to the leadership from mayor and council. The Meridian Way actually means something here. And that's pretty cool.
Any other questions or comments from council?
Nice job.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you again to all of you. Okay, item 7B, much to Bruce's chagrin, is my appointment, our recommendation to council to appoint C.J. Coles as our new city clerk. Certainly, most all of you know CJ, and we just talked about the Meridian Way. Certainly, CJ has that approach in everything he does. Certainly, I was very disappointed when he left our office, and I'm really glad to see that karma really does pull through, and what goes around comes around. But I think CJ brings a lot of skills to this, and certainly that public servant heart that he has will serve us well in the clerk's department as our city clerk. So, council, I would ask for your approval through of an appointment for CJ Coles to serve as our next city clerk.
Madam Mayor.
Mr. Palmer.
Madam Mayor, just as a motion, I feel like I just did this. I move we approve the appointment of CJ Coles as the city clerk.
Second.
I have a motion and several seconds. Thank you for that. Any discussion?
Madam Mayor.
Mr. Palmer.
Madam Mayor, as the liaison to the clerk's office, I couldn't be more excited. I was, when I first heard that this was going to be taking place, I remembered back to the days forever ago when I would be hanging out with CJ at his apartment near campus, and we'd be deciding whether to go to Taco Bell or Del Taco. And here we are now. He's being appointed to the city clerk, and I'm his liaison on the council. I'd like to tell you that was a long time ago, but it was maybe only a few years. Like I said, I'm really excited to be able to work with him as the clerk, and excited to be able to be the one to make that motion.
I'll back up. I didn't know he.
Changes things, huh?
I'm going to have to rethink this appointment recommendation.
Sorry,
Okay.
CJ.
Was it Taco Bell or?
Madam Mayor,
Taco Bell.
Mr. Kavner.
despite his lack of judgment as a youth, I think to your comment, CJ does embody that term public servant, and I think that both our community and staff as well as this council will benefit from having him up here and guiding us through meetings. I couldn't be more excited to have an individual who embodies the Meridian Way, despite not living in Meridian, but maybe that will change one day, and I'm excited to have the opportunity to vote for him.
Well, thank you for your comments. Madam Clerk, will you please call roll?
Thank you,
Or-
Madam Mayor.
Yeah.
Roll.
Councilmember Kavner.
Aye.
Councilmember Mylum.
Aye.
Councilmember Palmer.
Aye.
Councilmember Borton.
Aye.
Councilmember Byrd.
Aye.
All ayes. Congratulations, CJ. Wait, would you like to say anything, CJ?
Heck yes.
Better get
He's
up.
always good for a word.
Well, Madam Mayor, members of the council, I stand before you honored and grateful for this opportunity. Councilmember Palmer, I would have appreciated if you'd kept our secrets of Taco Bell or Del Taco, but that's okay. Years ago, it seems like, actually really feels like yesterday when I started in the mayor's office, I never could have imagined that I'd be standing here appointed as the city clerk of the city, but this really is a dream come true for me. I've loved working in this city, for this city, and really look forward to continuing that opportunity in the clerk's office. I know that I have the largest shoes to fill, not just with J.C. Holman, but with J.C. Jones. They set the standard very, very high for this position, and I will work every day to the best of my ability to live up to that standard. As you, Mayor, and Bruce stated, applying for this position wasn't easy for me because the department, the community development department, is outstanding. Every day I work with true professionals who embody the Meridian Way. It made it a little easier to apply for this position knowing the department that is put together in the clerk's office. They have that same mentality, that same Meridian Way approach to everything that public servants' heart. So it made it a little bit easier to apply, knowing that if I was selected, that I'd be joining an outstanding department. And I really hope just to not rock the boat too much over there, because they really know what they're doing and they do a really good job serving the citizens of Meridian. But I know you've got a few other items on the agenda, so I won't take much more time. But again, I appreciate this opportunity. I'm humbled and honored to be appointed. So thank you.
Thank you, CJ. And thank you, Council and JC. Okay, item 8A is under our Public Works Department, and I'll turn this.
And we brought most of Public Works Department.
Madam Mayor and members of the council, we appreciate taking a few minutes of your time. We appreciate your support for the Public Works Week celebration that we had this year. It was our 8th annual celebration. Our fearless leader, Tom Berry, is unable to be here today. He also sends his appreciation for your support. I know many of you had the opportunity to participate in several or some of the events over the week, and we just want to take a few minutes here, reflect on the week, talk about some of the successes, and end our presentation with a nice check to the Meridian Food Bank. So the Public Works Week, it just has a tremendous amount of value for our department, and we hope for the rest of the community. Its intention, which was established some 50 years ago by the American Public Works Association as a means of celebrating the activities of public works groups and their contribution to the community. We certainly highlighted a few here that we thought was important to our team. It gives us the opportunity to educate the public and make them aware of the roles in our community, recognize the hardworking professionals within the Public Works Department. As you probably witnessed, there's a lot of collaboration that we have with many partners in the community and many stakeholders that participate. A lot of team building. We look forward to this activity every year. It takes a lot of time and preparation, and through that, we do grow closer as a team as we work towards accomplishing a nice week and a nice event. And certainly giving back to the community is an important part of what's become that tradition. So 8 years ago was our first effort, and that was only the expo. And as you can see, as we look at the calendar of events this year, we've expanded to 5 days worth of events, starting with the proclamation at council meeting on Tuesday this year. Followed by Wednesday, the Go With The Flow tour. We had another tremendous turnout. We filled our bus. We had a 3.5-hour tour this year throughout the facilities, and that was well received. And we've already got 24, about a half a bus, signed up, ready to go for next year. So we may have to start looking at how we're going to expand our capabilities on that. That flowed on into Thursday, where we had our expo, and once again that was attended by nearly 1,000 folks in the community, when we had a great opportunity to show them the kinds of things we're doing in public works, and a lot of our other partners in the community have a chance to show what they're doing as well. That followed by a little bit of fun on Friday, our golf scramble event. We had almost 80 players participating, and it does raise some funds, for us to assist in the costs, and also to our food bank donation that we'll have here shortly. And that's we finished the week out with the Poop Scoot Run, and that this year had almost 150 participants, and that's the racing and the tennis ball from the water department to the wastewater department. And it was a great morning and a nice event, and we did have souvenir tennis balls, but we didn't bring them with us, I guess, today. So we'll let you catch up to those. But anyway, You know, these events can't happen without an awful lot of hard work, and we had a great team headed up by Susie Deerdorf and many members of the department that helped us pull this off, and I'll turn it over to her to introduce some of those members and give you some more detail.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, thank you for allowing us the chance to recap the efforts and successes of Meridian's 8th Annual Public Works Week. Planning begins each year in January with a group of Public Works employees that begin the massive task of planning all the events. We have 15 committee members, and then there's countless contributions by all Public Works staff in order to make these events successful. Here's a list of all the employees who assist and chair the event committees. This year's theme was Public Works Always There. As you know, Public Works does keep things running 24/7, 365, but we don't do this alone. Public Works Week is a series of events that require participation from our community partners, such as consultants and business partners, in order to educate and inform the residents in our community. They include agencies such as ACHD, ITD, Republic Services, Nampa Meridian Irrigation District, Home Depot, and even more. And this year we had Idaho Power and Intermountain Gas join us. These partners help make our Public Works Week activities both possible and successful. So let's talk about our community partners. This year we had 65 organizations that contributed in one way or another. 35 of those organizations contributed prizes or in-kind donations. We had 12 financial sponsors who donated $100 or more. And then between sponsor involvement and additional organizations, we had support from 18 community partners participating in the Golf Scramble. In total, proceeds from contributions and event participation equals $9,642. Now, this always costs things to run events this big. We plan annually for these events in the Public Works advertising, promotional, and public education budget. This year, the budget was $4,000. That represents 1/10,000th of Public Works' total budget. That's a very minor cost compared to the huge impacts and benefit that we gain for the effort. This is our single largest Public Works outreach in our educational event series. Now, we like to collect feedback on the events to ensure that we're hitting the mark. So, of the tour, we received 40 responses from our surveys. 100% of them said it was excellent. At the expo, we received 82 cards. 91 said it was excellent. Seven of those comments said it was good. And then in our first Poop Scoot survey, we used SurveyMonkey. We had 31 respondents. 53% said it was excellent, 47% said it was good. Now, we did have one respondent whose only comment was, "I lost." We didn't count that one. We assumed they had fun because they still responded. Now, we collect feedback in order to glean information in order to make the future outreaches have a better impact and be more meaningful to those who are participating. And as you can see, 100% of the feedback that we received rated the events as good or excellent. So let me share some of those responses with you. After the 3.5-hour tour of Public Works facilities with stops at significant landmarks or points in the water life cycle process, one participant said, "I found it all very interesting, a great description on how the whole water life cycle in our city works." And I don't know if this was Mr. Palmer, but he did join us on the tour, and we appreciate that. At the expo, there's lots of things to see, do, and touch. This is an event filled with activities for both kids and adults to learn about Public Works and what we do. It also gives the community a chance to interact with the Public Works staff and city staff. This is a family event that many look forward to year after year. We receive that feedback in many of the comments that we receive. One participant said it was fantastic. Fire hydrant, excavator, well aquifer info, truck tours, pipe cleaning, all of it. And on to the Poop Scoot. The Poop Scoot is a family-friendly, fun-run walk, for those of us who don't run, that is a race against a tennis ball dropped in the sewer line at the Water Division, goes to the Wastewater Division. We've made it easy for everyone to participate, kids, adults, and even the four-legged friends. One participant said, I love that the entry fee is for the food bank. It makes it a good option for kids and families to participate. One key thing to note is that Kyle won the trophy again for staff participation, so he's very happy.
That's rigged. I think, I think it's rigged.
Well, he did lose
Oh,
it last
Kyle.
year. So, before I'm going on to the next slide, I would like to thank Casey Emery for producing this year's Public Works Week video. So, in case you missed it, here it goes.
Thank you very much for Susie putting that together. She really bulldogs this. She has for the last couple years, and one thing that I get to do is talk about the benefit, but the real benefit is watching Susie work with the 15 individuals that you identified that volunteered their time in and out of their work schedules to participate in this thing. We may be one department, but we're geographically separated, and anytime you put an engineer, a wastewater operator, and a water operator in the same room, there's always different ideas, and Susie's able to get those ideas into effort and then build upon as the 8th annual. So a lot of effort goes to Susie, her team, and then all of the other 85 members behind the scenes that are picking up the slack when the rest of us are pulling off expos and doing tours. So tons of effort there. It's invaluable education, as you see in the slide. If you look at the demographics that Dale had on the tour, you're talking about all kinds of generations, little up to elderly folks that are interested in what Public Works is doing, and we're able to offer that. And not just the tour, but out here at the expo as well. The team building, I just mentioned what Susie does internally, but also we bring on and we solicit help from Development Services. Bruce Freckleton and his team with Home Depot and help with the bird cages and do some permit evaluations and sign off on what the kids build. Also MUBS, Carrie, and their team came out. The Solid Waste Advisory Council this year had the hand-in-hand. That was a good addition to the expo this year. The relationship building, Republic Services is up here shortly, but what a great sponsor they are, and the ability to work with them with the Go With The Flow tour, and Rochelle and her team do a great job. So thank you very much. And that's just one example. There's many others that truly help to pull off what Susie and Dale just provided you. So what is the outcome of some donations? This year, we had good support, and we were able to nearly match what we provided last year. And this year we chose to support the Meridian Food Bank with nearly 70% of a donation. We also, in alignment with last year, will donate some money to the Care to Share program, which you should be familiar with, that the Parks operates to send kids to camps. And then a little bit of a pivot this year is we made a decision to support the Community Recycling Fund. Many of you are aware that that fund has had a zero balance for a while because of the commodities and the recycling. Well, we thought, well, let's move a little bit of money that way if possible to give that commission the opportunity to do something for the community. So Susie, if you'll show. So a total of nearly $3,300 will be distributed. We'd like to present a check to Mr. Clark here in a moment. Susie, will you show them the breakdown? There should be a drum roll here. So thank you. So nearly $470 to the Care to Share, $470 to the Recycling Fund, and the remaining balance will go to a much needed Meridian Food Bank. And also they got the food from the Poop Scoot as well. So we appreciate everyone's efforts and those that donated. So Mr. Clark, if you'd like to come forward, and Mayor Tammy, would you come down so we can present a check to the Meridian Food Bank and grab a photo, please. Come on in, Mr. Clark. Here you go.
Comes at a great time.
Mr. Clark, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right.
Take that straight to the bank.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would like to thank our Public Works team on that. When you started this, I know similar to other programs, when they get started, there's some doubt of their worth. But this has been one of those things that I believe are talked about in the community. In fact, we had several of our senior advisory board members there. And at the following meeting, they talked about the tour and how valuable it was to not only better understand infrastructure that is better left unseen. And we always know that if we don't get phone calls, that's a good thing, because usually when we do, it's not so good. But building that understanding, building the relationship with our community, and the understanding of what does go into making sure that environmentally we are good stewards, and the commitment to quality that I believe that your staff exhibits during that is priceless. Counter to that, in my mayor's book club, I get kids that talk about that's their favorite event of the year, just coming and seeing the big equipment, seeing what happens is really one of those things that I think goes to not only community education, but we have concern about the graying effect of our workforce, and how to encourage and inspire kids to look at this as a career that they can go into. Public Works also had the Mayor's Youth Advisory Council out to the plant to, again, inspire them, because the technology we have there is pretty phenomenal. And looking at this as a career is really important. So all of this outreach not only gives confidence to our citizens that we serve of what we do with these resources and how we care for our environment, but it is hopefully inspiring a future workforce. So I think that this continues to grow every year, and it is an annual event that's looked forward to. So you guys do an awesome job, and appreciate it. Goes a long way. Under 8B is in our Solid Waste Advisory Commission, and I think I turn this over to Steve. Are you going to introduce this?
Madam Mayor, members of the council, my name is Steve Corey. I'm the chairman of your Solid Waste Advisory Commission, and I come to you to report that the Solid Waste Advisory Commission has reviewed the annual rate adjustment report from Republic Services, and we are forwarding it to you for your consideration with a due pass recommendation. And with that, I will defer to Rodney Remling of Republic Services to detail the report.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Steve. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. My name is Rodney Remling, Business Unit Controller for Republic Services, 11101 West Executive, Boise, Idaho. Our rates have been thoroughly reviewed by the Finance Department and also by the Legal Department. And as Steve said, they're brought to you for consideration. Our contract allows for an increase in rates by 90% of the non-disposal component of the rates. This year, the change in CPI was 1.61%. 90% of that brings it down to 1.45%. But the effective increase over the whole rate is 1.04%, or about 65% of the change in CPI. What that does to residential rates is it raises residential rates by 18 cents per household for all three service levels. 95-gallon carts are now at $17.85, or would be if you approve. 65-gallon carts at $15.85, and the smaller size at $13.85. In considering the rates, last year you might remember that the rate component last year was a bit more complicated with some changes in law to fuel taxes, and then also the Household Hazardous Waste Program, rolling those rates in. I wanted to bring you up to date on those because they had some impact on this rate. So last year in the fuel piece, there were two components of that. There was a permanent piece that was 3 cents per household, and then there was a temporary piece of 1 cent per household that was intended to remain on there through the end of the fiscal year 2016. That was temporary because there was a lag in the time, the change in law, and also the change in rate. So that's the reason for the temporary component. Just so you know, we backed off that temporary component before applying the rate increase, and so that did not impact the future rates from that temporary component. Subsequent to the increase or to the change in law on the state level, the federal government put in a federal tax credit on the use of CNG. Interesting that the result of that was pretty much negated the state's increase. So what we did, by the way, that goes through December 2016, and so what we did is for 2015, the calendar year 2015, we returned those funds to the city. It was about $2,000. For calendar year 2016, that's about $800 a month, which is about the amount of the increase that was rolled in. And so at the bottom line, there's no impact to our income on that. So essentially, we're charging because it's part of the rate, but we're giving it back to the city. And that, again, that's through December 2016. The other component of the rate increase was a household hazardous waste, which was 24 cents per household. Year to date, fiscal year to date, that is running at about 21 cents per household. But the summertime increases the use of that program, therefore the cost of it. We expect that to be right at 24 cents by the time we end the year. So seems to be right on target and taking care of the citizens. Was there any questions on that before I go to the new rates?
Madam Mayor. It's me down here, sorry.
Mr. Kavner.
I do have a quick question, Mr. Ripley, regarding the CPI. In the report provided, you indicate that we utilize the CPI of the West because the CPI of the Pacific Northwest is no longer in existence.
Yes.
I'm hoping you could provide some context on if the CPI of the West mirrors traditionally the CPI of the Northwest. Is the CPI of the West traditionally at a higher amount or a lower amount comparatively?
Councilman Kavner, Mayor, I don't have any knowledge on that. That rate or that CPI has been gone for many years. The CPI of the West that we are using is typical of what we use in this area, and it is regionally correct for us. So we don't believe that CPI accurately represents our increase in costs that we experience on a year-to-year basis, but it is, or at the time, was similar.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Okay, Madam Mayor, there are 6 new rates that we're requesting with this. These rates are rates that we have in other places in the valley. 4 of those rates relate to commercial services. The first one we're asking for is a container or a cart delivery fee of $10. There's already a steel container fee of $22.82. This cart fee represents the cost associated with delivering a cart and is a lesser amount. It allows us to charge for that. The second rate is a lid lock fee, and it's a one-time charge of $43, and this would be installed on steel containers anywhere from 2 to 8 yards. It's a voluntary charge. It would only come into play if, say, a commercial customer had some illegal dumping going on and wanted to secure their container. They could call us. We could install a lock. We'd have to bring it in, weld some brackets onto it to allow for the lock, and then that'd be the charge for that. The third charge is a monthly service, which covers the additional time it takes to service a locked container. And so that's a monthly charge, and that's $12.39 per month. And again, that's just because taking the time to unlock that, service it, then relock it, makes up for the lost productivity. The fourth commercial charge is also a voluntary charge, and it is for our largest containers, which are 20 to 40 yard roll-off containers. And again, when a customer has illegal dumping going on, they may want to secure that. What we can do is we can have a screen top built for that. That's about $3,000 to do that. The charge for that's about $35 a month. A customer might have that for a long time, or it might be something that moves around, and so a monthly charge just offsets the cost of installing that device. There is no monthly fee associated with that service as far as unlocking that. The last two rates that we're asking for are residential, and they are both one-time charges. In fact, they're already being charged a higher amount of about $20.90 on the new structure. And these are things like non-Freon appliances. So that could be a dishwasher, it could be a washing machine or a dryer. Those are non-Freon appliances, and we're asking for $15 to take those and pick them up. There is a charge already for Freon, and that charge is at $52.90. And the reason for the difference in price is because there are environmental costs, third-party costs that we pay to evacuate that Freon, and so that's for difference in the cost. The last item is a bulky item pickup, and these are also one-time charge. It only occurs when a customer calls and says, hey, I have a bed, I have a couch, I have a table and chairs, or something like that. Will you come pick it up? We route that and come pick that up, and that's $15. We're asking for $15 on that too. To add some clarity about that, so if somebody called and said, hey, I've got a table and chairs, that'd be $15. It's a unit. It wouldn't be looked at as a chair, a table's $15, and then each chair $15. It is the unit. If somebody has, say, an entertainment center with multiple pieces to that, it's one unit. It's something that goes together. A bed, $15. So in the past, so like for calendar year 2015, there were 700 requests within the city of Meridian for those. Revenue on that is about $14,000. However, half of those, or excuse me, 42% of that is done during spring cleanup, so there is no additional charge for it. So citizens making good use of the spring cleanup that's provided under contract get rid of those items at no charge to them. It's also more efficient for us to pick them up that way, and we welcome that. But it's just the one-offs. It's the additional cost of routing that we're asking for compensation on. Any questions?
Council, any questions?
I have none.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Neary.
we just need direction from the council to move forward to notice for a public hearing. Our target was to probably have the public hearing on September 6th, but to have adequate noticing prior to that.
Sounds reasonable.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Item 8C is from Ada County 2025, the Ada County Comprehensive Plan update. Good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon, Madam Mayor, council members. It is a PDF. There's a full screen mode. Just go down. One more, yeah. Oh, thanks. Madam Mayor, council members, I'm Megan Basham with Ada County Development Services. I'm the community and regional planner there. And I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to come and talk to you about our comprehensive plan update that we're calling Ada County 2025. I also want to extend thanks to Brian McClure. He's been very engaged in our process and very helpful and has provided good comments for us. So we really appreciate it. Oh, okay. Thanks. We don't have this at Ada County, so. As you know what a comprehensive plan is. It's the long-range policy guide for the growth and development of a jurisdiction. Ours is for the unincorporated areas outside of impact areas. And our plan was last updated in 2007. And so we decided that it was time for an update since things have changed since then. And one of the interesting things that's different about this plan is we also tied it to our countywide strategic business planning process. And that was really to help harness, for at least, especially for the strategic business plan, to harness that public comment that you get through the comprehensive planning process and help us really find that unified vision for the county and how we deliver our services. All right. As you know, the impetus for comprehensive plan is how to deal with the growth. And based on Compass projections, we are projected to have about 674,000 people in Ada County, be over 1 million in the Treasure Valley. The population for unincorporated Ada County is about 60,000 right now, and it's held steady from about 1990 on, although with annexations we don't know where our population in unincorporated Ada County is going to be. But it's interesting that it's stayed level over the last 26 years or so. As you know, Meridian's population in 2015 was about 91,000, and you are the fastest growing city in the county. Next. And this is just a general guide of what it's going to look like based on the city's comprehensive plans. And this is also from Compass data. And each of those black dots represents 5 people. So you can see how it's really starting to fill out in the west and the south, and north in Eagle and Star. So that's where the population is moving, and not too much in unincorporated Ada County, but we'll get into that in a little bit. So we spent the last year reaching out to the public. In October, we had 6 focus groups with different sectors of the community. We've done online and social media. We've done lots of community presentations and work sessions. Some of the feedback that we got back in the early part of the fall last year really highlighted 2 issues, and one was agriculture preservation and open space and recreation. So in February, we held 2 policy summits that looked at our current policies, what was missing, what was finished, and what could be done better as we move forward. And we had lots of participation in those as well. Brian attended both of those, I believe. We also had open houses, and we've been coordinating with our Planning and Zoning Commission and our board. One thing that I say the 2 issues that came up, agriculture and open space, but by far the biggest issue is transportation. As you know, with ACHD and ITD as being the road authorities, we chose to focus on agriculture and open space. It's not to say that transportation isn't important, because it is, and we want to play an active role in that, but that's why those 2 were brought up. So our plan, it's been typical in Ada County's current plan is like this, that state code requires 17 elements to be addressed in a comprehensive plan, and each element gets their own chapter. We tried to make it less clunky, more reader-friendly, so we organized it into 6 focus areas. And each one of those focus areas represents applicable elements. They are addressed per state code. So we have county resources and amenities, coordinated growth, which is our land use, economic capacity, community connections, which is the transportation, sustainable practices and resiliency, and organizational effectiveness. And that's really to help tie it back to our strategic business plan. So that's more of an internal policy for us, and reminding us to do that. All right. The first one, county resources and amenities. So this focuses on open space, natural areas, recreation, historical preservation. And by far the the thing we heard most was our residents want the jurisdictions to work together and collaborate. So we really tried to build that into our plan. One of the, or a couple of things specific to Meridian, really working closer with the cities on park implementation within the areas of impact. And we heard that from Steve Sidaway. And then really looking at how we can expand upon our trail system and bike system in southern and western Ada County, not just the foothills and along the Greenbelt. Coordinated growth, as I said, this is our land use plan. And we're not really taking a big leap from where our current policy is, where we are directing most of the urban development densities into the cities and areas of impact. The plan does still allow for planned communities in this comprehensive plan, but we don't provide sewer or other services that would really support urban level development. So we're continuing on with that. We want to really work with the cities on helping to improve upon the area of impact process, because that's a challenge not just in Ada County but statewide. And the other one is really supporting urban agriculture and maintaining agriculture lands within the area of impact. So I'm really excited to see the Growing Together Forum. So hopefully we can get there, or I can get there and start to work with your staff on that. And also working with the cities to address the enclaves. That was something that Brian has brought up several times in our discussions, and so we want to be proactive in dealing with those as well. This is our future land use map. It's a little different from 2007, but again, it just highlights where mostly where the different types of agriculture land are, irrigated lands versus non-irrigated lands. It does show some, an area along Pleasant Valley, and for emerging industrial and sand and gravel. We have a lot of sand and gravel operations on that road. And then potentially an emerging industrial center off of, it's kind of hard to see at this scale, but it's down at the railroad where the Darling plant is and the new Simplot plant is, to start clustering those together. This is a little different than what cities have, is, we don't have the areas designated for residential densities or commercial. It's more of contextual. So if there's an industrial use being proposed in unincorporated Ada County, we have, it should be along arterial roads or where it's easy to get to, not close to residential. So this is more of a contextual approach versus the colors on a map, simply because the county doesn't provide those services to do a map like that. Economic capacity, this is again where coordination and cooperation between the jurisdictions comes into play. And as I said, most of our policies are really promoting commercial and industrial uses within the cities where those services are available. Some uses like the Simplot rendering plant that might not be appropriate for city limits, accounting for something like that, but for the most part, retail and things like that should go into the cities. Community connections, this is transportation, coordinating our regional transportation, participating in Compass, expanding our transportation options. One of the things we also heard from the cities is the use of private streets and cul-de-sacs in some of those older subdivisions has really prevented the cities from developing. It cuts off the sewer extensions. So working to discourage the use of private streets and cul-de-sacs in the area of impacts to help with the facilitation of utility or the extension of utilities and promoting that connectivity for pedestrians and bikes. Sustainable practices and resiliences. So this chapter deals with somewhat internal, how we want to build our buildings, if we put facilities in, energy policies, things like that. But also deals with our hazard mitigation as far as floodplain and the WUFI. And the Meridian participates in the Ada City County Emergency Management. So this ties back to that hazard mitigation plan that department works on. And as I said, this last one is really to tie back to that strategic business plan to keep them together and help us focus on how we can be an efficient delivery or an efficient deliver our services in an efficient manner and really aligning the county policies under that strategic business plan. So out of all of that, we've identified 5 priority initiatives. These aren't in any specific order, but establishing the tools needed to advance agriculture conservation and also open space and recreation in Ada County, supporting our business plan. One of the big tasks that we'll undertake after the adoption of our comp plan is fixing up our zoning code and making it consistent, and then actively collaborating with the cities on the area of impacts. So our public hearing process has started. The document has been sent out for the official transmittal. We are scheduled for Planning and Zoning Commission on September 15th. If there aren't any material changes or tablings at that hearing, we'll move forward to a board hearing in November. So hopefully by the end of the year, this will be done and we can move forward into implementation. It's been about a 1.5-year process, so it's been fun, but we're ready to move on to the next step. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Excellent. Thank you, Megan. Council, any questions?
Very nice presentation.
Is it possible that we can get a copy of this PowerPoint? Okay.
Part of the public record.
Yeah, I'd love to kind of chew on it. But I appreciated that you broke it down and showed what was relevant or pertinent to Meridian and our particular concerns.
Yeah, it is a lot of information to digest, and there is a website, adacounty2025.com, where it is broken out by chapter. I found it a lot easier to read than our previous one, but it still takes time.
Yes. Well, I'm sure you can do it in your sleep at this point if you've been working on it for a year and a half. Well, thank you for coming and sharing that with us. And Brian, thank you for being our representative and keeping a pulse on it. It seems like you've identified a number of the things that we've met with the county on and wrapped it into your plan, and we appreciate that.
Well, thank you for your comments and allowing me to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, under item 9, continued action items, we have a public hearing on the proposed fall 2016 fee schedule. And I will turn
Thank
this
you,
over to Jake.
Madam Mayor and members of the council. Summer 2016 is coming to a quick close. Our summer camps were filled up, and we are currently in our final week of Camp Meridian, so staff is working hard to get the schools back into shape for school that's beginning here at the end of the month. Our outdoor adventure camp concluded last week. That filled up. We had 6 weeks of full capacity, taking those students around to various parts throughout the community and doing fun, adventurous stuff. So With that being said, with 2016 summer coming to a close, we are now in the process of finalizing our fall 2016 activity guide. That will go to print tomorrow and be released Friday, with fall class registrations beginning Monday, August 15th, and the majority of fall classes beginning September 6th. So some of the new additions that we have this fall, we have added a kids yoga course for kids ages, I believe it's 6 to 10. And the buzzword in Parks and Recreation is pickleball. So we will be offering pickleball lessons and classes at Home Court Y for those 50 and above. So, sorry, Luke. You have to wait.
50 and above?
Keith, you're the only one that
Yeah.
qualifies.
So,
I don't get it. Why?
well,
That's
that was
discrimination.
That was the instructors are of that demographic, and they want to grow the sport, and they're excited about it. And
What's the pickleball?
pickleball is definitely
Be home in time for Matlock.
growing, and
Just
It's growing big, isn't it?
it's growing big, yeah. So with that being said, just seeking approval for the 2016 fall fees, and if you have any questions, I will be certainly happy to answer those.
Madam
thank
Mayor?
you. Yes, Mr. Kavner.
Couple questions. Jake, I think I probably ask you this every time. Anything new in this year's rec
We do.
guide
We
that
have,
need to-
like I mentioned, the kids yoga. We do have the pickleball, and I have a lady she's offering a crystal and rock workshop, a couple workshops on Saturday mornings at the community center. We have one trip planned for this fall. We will be taking in the Starlight Mountain Theater, watching the play Sugar. So we do have a new Zumba instructor. We had a Zumba instructor retire and leave us and move to Colorado to go spend some time with the grandkids. So excited about bringing somebody new on with Zumba, and that's kind of about it as far as new stuff.
Madam Mayor, additional question if I may. Jake, with all the classes and programs that we offer, talk to me about utilization. You talked about Meridian, which it sounds like we're full to capacity and there's not there's space there. Is that how the rest of our programs are?
Yeah, I mean, we've had a busy summer. Our Camp Meridian, for those of you who don't know, that they take place, we have two sites at Willow Creek Elementary and Sienna Elementary School. Last summer, we were at Prospect. We got moved out of there at the last minute. Going into this summer, they were doing some painting within the building. So at the 11th hour, as our guide was going to print that morning, we were moved over to Willow Creek. So with that being said, Camp Meridian, we averaged, I would say probably anywhere between 40 and 50 kids each week. We do cap those camps at 50 just because of space. We have one little small room in each facility that kind of makes it difficult for programming, but the school is really good to let us use the gyms and the cafeteria for additional space as needed. Our outdoor adventure camp, that's a 6-week program. We take kids out, we do whitewater rafting, we rock climb at Bodies in Motion, we paddleboard at Quinn's Pond, and do other various activities on the other days. But that's a 6-week camp, and that was filled up each week. So we capped that at 12 just because of van space. So I would like to expand that camp, but with that being said, we also need a mode of transportation to do so. But as far as the other community education classes, the ones that take place at the community center and various other locations throughout the summer, our numbers are up. So it's a good problem to have. Space is limited, but I think with the addition to the Home Court Y, where we can get into Bay 5 and do some accommodations to that facility moving forward so we can expand some of those community ed type classes, will be a great thing. So
Great.
Any further questions? Thank you, Jake.
thank you.
Item 9B is a resolution supporting this, Resolution 16-1155.
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Byrd.
seeing no hand in here, I'll move that we approve resolution number 16-1155.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve item 9B. There's no discussion. Madam Clerk or Mr. Clerk?
I'll finish up tonight. Councilmember Cavanagh.
Aye.
Councilmember Mylum.
Aye.
Councilmember Palmer. Councilmember Borton.
Aye.
Councilmember Byrd.
Aye.
All ayes, motion carried. Item 10 is executive session.
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Byrd.
I move we go into executive session as per Idaho State Code 74206 1F and also 74206A 1A1.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adjourn into executive session. Madam Clerk, will you call roll?
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Cavanagh.
Aye.
Councilmember Mylum.
Aye.
Councilmember Palmer. Councilmember Borton.
Aye.
Councilmember Byrd.
Aye.
All ayes.
Okay.
Yes. Mr. Byrd.
I move that we come out of an executive session and continue the executive session till the end of the next item.
I have a motion and a second to come out of executive session, and, well, what he said. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All ayes. Item 11A is the continued public hearing for the program year 2016 Community Development Block Grant to take additional public testimony. And would ask if there is any member of the public who would like to provide testimony on the Community Development Block Grant Action Plan. Yes, sir. Good evening.
Good evening.
If you'll please state your name and address for the record.
Michael B. Morrison, 3405 North Kurt Drive, Meridian, Idaho.
Thank you.
Okay. After coming and signing up to visit tonight, I find out that what I was actually here for isn't on the agenda, but it's the sidewalks and stuff like that. And talking with the developers and stuff, we're good to go.
Okay.
Do you have any questions for me?
I don't know what you just said, but you're good to go.
Okay.
You're good in supporting the.
I was here and stuff because I thought the meeting was about the low-income housing project, not the sidewalks down 2.5 Street. I got a postcard in the mail and stuff for tonight about the low-income housing. So, being I'm here for the wrong reason, I don't have any objections to the sidewalks.
Madam Mayor.
Mr. Palmer.
Madam Mayor, and sir, thanks for coming. There was some confusion, I guess, as to the point of the topic, and what I guess to kind of explain to somebody else who was in your similar situation, that while the hearing isn't necessarily about the public housing itself, what was talked a lot about during the previous meeting on the topic was that their odds of getting the federal grant to build and sustain the project would be improved. Their odds of getting that would be improved if we approved helping subsidize the sidewalk to get that part done, because then it would be something that the developer wouldn't then have to build, could then put more money into subsidizing the rent with the additional help from the federal government. And so while it's not about the project itself, it is
related to it.
Yeah, in that if we approve these funds for that, the odds of that happening will increase.
Right, and I do have a problem with that part of it, but not the sidewalks and that.
Because the sidewalks are not related to the project itself.
Correct.
It's designing sidewalks on 2nd and a half Street.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So like I say, I was here for the wrong reason. I've talked with the developers, and they're much better than other ones I've talked with. So I thank you for your time.
Thank you for coming this evening.
Yeah, good day.
Okay. Anyone else like to provide testimony on this item? Yes, sir. Thank you for joining us. If you'll please state your name and address for the record.
Chance Hobbs, 1244 Herrick Street in McCall, formerly 5323 Moon Lake in Meridian.
Thank you.
I'm here, just wanted to take a few minutes to address some of the concerns that have been brought up. As Councilman Palmer had talked about, it does increase our probabilities of potential funding. At this point, it's still a highly competitive process. It's one that we're pretty good at. The last 3 we've applied for, we have been funded in Garden City, in Donley, and in Star, and all 3 of those projects are moving forward. Garden City finished up, and Donley and Star are both just starting construction. There's a couple things that we're going to get into this, and we'll have more public hearings as we go down the road, and you're going to hear a lot of opinions that are going to come through. There's going to be a lot of opinions, and 4 or 5 items you're going to hear that are just worded differently each time is that it's going to increase crime, It's going to increase traffic. It's going to increase kids. And it's going to decrease property values. I've worked on this for the last 5 or 6 years. I've been on a lot of these meetings. I've been a lot of interaction with the public on this type of development. And each time I have continued to ask for facts. Council deals with facts. We deal with facts and numbers as we invest several $1 million in these developments. We want to know facts and numbers and figures that support our position, support our investment. And so a couple of things that, as I mentioned, the opinions that come through on these 4 or 5 items are not supported by fact and by reports and by studies and observations done over the last 30 years in high density or higher density development. And when we talk about high density, the definition, it's usually related to a 12-story residential structure. In the West, we compare it more towards single-family development if that's your density on half-acre or 1-acre parcels. If we go down to quarter-acre or 0.7-acre parcels, that's higher density. So for us out here, it's garden-style apartments. It's 2- and 3-story structures. It's not 6- and 8-story structures out in Meridian. Maybe in Boise we see them, but not quite yet in Meridian. So a couple of the things that, there's some reports out there, and the Urban Land Institute does a great job with a myth versus fact when it comes to higher density. Apartment dwellers have, on average, 1 car less than single-family residents. They make half the trips that single-family residents do. So you have less cars, less traffic. You have less kids. 100 units of single-family generates typically 60 to 64 children. In apartments, 100 units of apartments generates anywhere from 21 if you're a garden-style apartment walk-up, like the Foothills, 21 kids per 100 units, or 19 if you're in a higher density 3- or 4-story structure. So we've got less kids. We've got less kids going to school. Fiscal burden, that's a favorite one. We talk about how it's a drain on our fiscal services. I would question the costs that are related to dragging water and sewer out to 10 Mile and out to McDermott, as I saw on the action plan, versus infill development, where you're not having to drag water and sewer and streets and sidewalks and have that assigned over to the city to maintain, and 20 years from now, it's a capital budget there and available. I could end up. But so.
Council, would you like him to continue?
Yeah. No, thank you. So your fiscal burden is very reduced on your costs. I heard earlier one of the gentlemen was concerned about busing and Meridian's bus system. You've got a great new building that was built just down the street. They've done some reports and observations that show that you need a minimum of about 7 units per acre to sustain busing, and you need over 10 units per acre to sustain light rail. As we build 3 to 4 units per acre across the subdivisions that are being built, it's not sustainable. As you infill development and you add units per acre, then your bus routes become feasible, and it becomes feasible based on higher real estate taxes, higher impact fees, and higher economic spending coming from a very small, more densely populated area. So 2.5 acres, you're going to have 70, 72 units of households that are spending money in your downtown, near your downtown, who are on foot walking to the Slice and walking to Rite Aid and across the subway in Old Chicago. They're not driving in. Moon Lake is out in Jayden Village, which is Black Cat New Stick. We were there for 3 years. We would come into town, as you'd say, for whatever, a couple times a week, but avoided it at all costs in the mornings and in the evenings, especially from about 3 to 6 because traffic was so terrible coming in on those 2-lane roads. And so as we talk about infill development and the benefits that it brings to a city, beyond the fiscal benefits is it reduces your traffic. It reduces your overall expenses in your public works and in your streets. And a lot of that's Ada County, I understand, but overall it reduces costs on your infrastructure. One of the last things I wanted to talk about was crime. It's often brought up that affordable housing, multifamily housing, higher density housing increases crime. The fact of the matter is it's not true. A lot of that comes from historical experiences. The federal government ran affordable housing from the 40s till about the 80s, till President Reagan enacted what is now Section 42 in the tax code and turned it from the federal government running affordable housing to private people running affordable housing. ran some numbers down in Garden City on our 64-unit deal that's very similar to the one we would be proposing here. And over 6 months, the first 6 months of this year, we had 7 calls that were non-welfare check related. We know that the police do welfare checks on individuals, but 7 actual service calls for some type of crime over 64 units. There's a development we're working on in Star, and we're getting a lot of pushback from a specific neighborhood who has 304 houses, and in that same time had 30 or 45 service calls. Actually more service calls per unit than our low-income housing tax credit development in Garden City. And so is what they found, it's consistent with what quite a few other studies saw, is that the reason why crime is associated, or higher crimes associated with multifamily or higher density, is because you have 2 entrances typically. And so people see police going in one entrance and coming out one entrance. It's very closed in. And so if you spread out and do it on a per call per unit basis, it's no higher, in fact less than single family residence. And so that's just a quick summation of the things you're going to hear over the next 3 to 4 to 5 months as we work through these things. And I'm not just spitting these things off. A quick place to start is on Realtor.org. They've got a great cache of studies and information. If you just Googled field guide for affordable housing. Property values is one that Realtor.org, I imagine, would have some sort of knowledge and information on. And their data and everything they see in their summary statement state that affordable housing and multifamily housing, in fact, stabilizes, if not increases, single-family resident property values. And it does that because you're creating people moving in who are, when I was going to college with my wife, we would have been able to afford into a unit like this, and as we finished school and got jobs and we were ready to move, we still had ties to the community. And guess what? I want to stay in my area. I want to stay in my community, so I go as to the closest subdivisions that are around me to stay where I know and creating demand. And so I appreciate the council and the mayor for working through this and listening through this. You're going to hear a lot over the next 6 to 8 months. Like I said, please, I know you're busy. Find some time to jump on, do a little research, and get to the facts. There's going to be a lot of heated emotional opinions that come through, as this is an emotional thing as we're working through it. But thank you. Any questions?
Any questions?
Madam Mayor.
Mr. Kavner.
Question popped up through your presentation. I appreciate making the comparison contrast for calls to service in your project in Garden City versus Star. Do you have data on other calls for service and other apartments in Garden City? Recognizing I think Star and Garden City are
two very different,
pretty different communities. So
very different communities, and that was one of the contrasts that I wanted to make. Is I've got fewer calls in low-income housing tax credit development in Garden City, which has a stigma to itself as they're working through it, and they're doing a great job, versus Star, which is picturesque as a retirement community, if you will. So they are two very different. But the picture I was trying to paint is that I've got fewer calls in this development versus calls in a higher-end development, single family. And trying to show, and I don't, to answer your question, no, I don't have any further. Okay. I will continue to ask Ada County Sheriffs for service calls, specifically in this area. Foothills is one that's just up off Franklin. I'm interested to see what Foothills service calls are. That's a tax credit development in your city that has been here since, I think, 2003 or 2004. And then there's also a senior low-income housing tax credit project off of Pine that was built several years ago. I'd be interested to see what those rates compared to Loxha or Paramount.
Madam Mayor, I don't have a question, more of a comment. So being the liaison to the police department, I had this conversation with the police department, and there are absolutely no more calls for service to low-income apartments than any other housing type in Meridian, and sometimes less. That was pretty much the answer. Certainly not higher.
And that's what a lot of the studies have shown. But again, there's the stigma of public housing. Appreciate that. Anything else?
Okay, any other questions? Thank you for being with us.
Look forward to working with you.
Okay, anyone else like to provide comment? Yes, ma'am.
I came in a little bit late, so I guess have some questions, so hopefully I won't.
If you'll please state your name and address for the record.
Kathy Emmon, 2586 Misty Drive, 16-year resident of Meridian.
Thank you, Kathy.
I just wonder if people are going to be perfect angels and they're going to be walking around, how much longer is our commute going to have to be to make our streets safe enough? We're going to have all these extra people, and I don't understand where the money is coming from for the project.
China.
I wondered. So yeah, it kind of concerns me a little bit. I do taxes, so I do a lot of help for people that have low income. They typically like to spend money right around tax return time, but the kids are all going to want, free lunches, and I just don't understand how we're going to be able to afford all this. I don't have current data, but I want to say within the last 10 years, our median income has been around $55,000 to $57,000 a year. So I'm not sure where the need is coming from, if it's coming from other cities nearby, or is this coming from something else farther away? Where are the people coming from for this project?
The project that we're discussing tonight is a sidewalk project that is on Second and a Half, that has been linked to a potential project that would be a working family apartment complex. There's two other projects in Meridian, as the gentleman just stated. One is for the working family, and the other one is a senior living one. Those two are different from other low-income subsidized projects. So that's one distinguishing factor. But the project that we're talking about today is really the design of sidewalks on Second and a Half Street.
Okay.
So there is not a project as of yet.
Okay.
Yeah. This is, as Mr. Palmer pointed out earlier, when this was presented to council, it was presented as part of a financial submittal for a project that would like to be the working family subsidized housing type of a project. But this project that is being contemplated right now is just for the design of a sidewalk on Second and a Half.
Okay. All right, thank you.
And maybe Sean can provide you more information after this, so you get a little bit more clarity.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any further testimony? Council, any further questions for staff?
Madam Mayor, I have a couple questions for
Okay.
staff. Sean, question for you. Earlier, when you were going through the PowerPoint, you identified what looks to be two different sidewalk projects. One that we've received some considerable amount of testimony on tonight, and the other one related to the Meridian Development Corporation's application. Would either or both or neither of those qualify for Davis-Bacon wages if we move forward with either one of those proposals?
Madam Mayor, Councilman, I think that they might, but we're not paying for labor, so whoever's building that would pay for that, and they would track that. We're paying for design on either one of those projects. So it doesn't enter into, we wouldn't be tracking labor in that direct way. Just out of clarity, I imagine VCD would be tied, or the state would be tied to some of those same requirements.
Depending on the source of funds. So CDBG funds, other funds administered by HUD, you would be. In this case, that was one of the structures.
Okay, we need this on public record.
Madam Mayor, I don't believe because you're just getting the design and stuff, so the Bacon Davis wages does not come in to the actually doing the physical work. as I remember.
That's correct. So as I was stating back there.
You've got to, for the design, for your professional to design, the engineered and stuff, Bacon Davis doesn't apply.
Right. And this, the potential development would not trigger Davis-Bacon either, as we would not be requesting funds
we're
that
not discussing
are
that.
tied to that. I understand, but.
And I think that's where we've had a lot of problems the last couple of 3 weeks, is everybody thought we were discussing an application. No,
No Davis-Bacon.
Bacon Davis wouldn't be it
Correct.
at all with his 50,000, or we wouldn't be requesting it.
Sure, we would. Who would?
Did you have any further questions, Mr.
Oh,
Kavner?
I think Sean did an adequate job of addressing that.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Borden?
if the application of the state is denied for the project, does the funding for the sidewalk construction, that reverts back to one of the alternative programs?
Madam Mayor, Councilman, that will go to anything that council would like to put. It could be one of those trigger projects. We can come up with another project. We can have a special session and do that. But yes, that's exactly right. If it doesn't move forward, that CDBG funds belongs to the city, and we're going to use that for the city.
But there is a need for a sidewalk on 2nd and Half Street. I mean, it doesn't have to be tied to any project. It needs a sidewalk. And we've heard that often because of the high school out there, that residents would like to see a sidewalk on that. And you even heard that tonight. So,
Madam Mayor, I think that brings up an additional question then.
okay.
If the discussion is related to sidewalk design, I guess my question for the council is, what does that have to do with then the applicant and their need for the $50,000 in funds? If the discussion is specifically related to sidewalk, well, then shouldn't this council discuss the merits of having a sidewalk designed on 2.5 Street and use CDBG funds specifically related for that?
Madam Mayor. Well, and I agree, but somebody has to build the sidewalk. So we could pay to design the sidewalk all day long, which is what we're doing, but who's going to build the sidewalk?
Again, I think that if this is just for design, it shouldn't matter who the entity is. And why would we go through a third-party entity to get a sidewalk designed when we can hire a contractor to get the design created on our own? I guess I'm struggling to find what the applicant's role is outside of needing to have the city say, here's $50,000 to help them with their state application. If there's truly a discussion about sidewalks, well, then let's have the discussion about sidewalks, but we would need to involve a third-party entity in that case.
Madam Mayor, Councilman, I'm not sure if that's a comment for me to answer, if that's a...
It's more a comment on my end.
Okay.
May I respond? Madam Mayor, Council? So you're correct. Outside of a third party saying, city, we need 50,000 in CDBG. We just need CDBG funds. So part of the program that we work under in Section 42, which is administered by Idaho Housing and Finance, they put together a plan and they ask developers to compete under a point structure. And the latest plan that they have for 2016 has a specific section in there for federally subsidized funds. And it's RD 515, RD 538, CDBG, and a couple others that are non-existent any further. So CDBG is really your only option. And so as we talk about why bring the third party in, we did this with Garden City where we requested $350,000 in tax income and financing funds to rebuild 42nd Street. Garden City could have rebuilt 42nd Street, but because we were involved and we leveraged it into the development and it got us points to get the project funded, we then put an $11 million development down. We rebuilt 42nd Street, 900 feet of water, sewer, street, sidewalk, tree wells. And so your $50,000 investment essentially is leveraged into a $12 to $13 million development that brings sidewalks, street improvements, sewer, all those items. Now in Garden City, Phase 2 is another $11 million for-sale townhome development. Something similar we're looking over here is a for-sale market rate townhome thing. So your $50,000 investment, you could very easily go out and hire it on your own. Does that suffice?
It does.
Good.
Madam Mayor.
Mr. Palmer.
Madam Mayor, a question for you. If someone wanted to come build the kind of apartments that we have applications for all the time, just not federally subsidized, would a CDBG grant be an option for us to help facilitate a sidewalk for a project like that? Or did it have to be an affordable housing kind of situation to qualify for it?
Madam Mayor, Councilman Palmer, no, you don't need to have CDBG for, well, your question is, can any development apply for CDBG? We wouldn't have to go through that process. The city can build sidewalks anywhere they'd like. And so if we'd like to partner with another agency or development agency or developer to do that, we could certainly leverage CDBG dollars as the city to do that. This case is only because they're looking for low-income housing tax credits from the state that they would need that partnership with the city of Meridian. And I'm not even sure that that would be the only way that the city of Meridian could partner with them, as you just heard, another way that they did it in Garden City. But that's what we have to offer, and that's a way that we can leverage those dollars. So to answer your question, they could apply for them, but if they didn't have a 501c3 to manage that project, they couldn't, because that's part of the rule, which they do. But the city wouldn't have to do that because you guys can approve another project like that, and we can manage it from the city.
Give them money to
With
build sidewalks.
CDBG funds.
Correct.
Oh, sorry. Are you not?
I'm just going to comment on that, if I may, Madam Mayor. That then it appears to me that the vast majority of the people that have presented comment want a sidewalk, but they don't want the project that's coming with it. They don't appear to have any problem with apartments, but they don't want this situation of apartments.
Madam Mayor.
Ms. Mylum.
So I think the question that we need to maybe answer amongst ourselves tonight is if we approve this and the project doesn't go through for whatever reason, they don't get the funding, we're committing this money to the sidewalk, period, and it doesn't go back to some other project, or the other option is it does. So if we're committing to the sidewalk, then we probably should be committing to the sidewalk and find either another partner, whether that's ACHD or another developer or somebody else, that we're committing those funds to the sidewalk, like what we've been telling everybody all night.
This would get it designed. It wouldn't get it
Right.
built.
No, I understand.
And so I think the first step is getting it designed. Then if you don't have a partner that actually constructs it, then you work with maybe the next level of CDBG dollars next year for the construction of it.
Madam Mayor, that's exactly what I'm saying. But what Sean had said was if this project doesn't go through, those funds would come back instead of designing the sidewalk and maybe go to one of those alternative projects. So what I'm saying is we just commit it to this sidewalk design project and call it good.
Madam Mayor?
And you can do that, correct, Seth?
Madam Mayor,
Sean.
I think that if I understand the question correctly, it's what would happen if they don't move forward? And the answer is the city would get to decide whether we trigger another project, whether we commit it to sidewalks in 2.5 Street, whether we talk to MDC and up their ask that for the triggerable amounts that we have there. But ultimately, it would be any project the city felt that they wanted to do, we could do with those funds. They would come right back into the coffers for CDBG. And so if that answers the question of what can be done, that's what can be done. I think that your statement was basically saying to fund the project as stated, and then if it doesn't go forward, we would look at that later.
To this project of design for project or sidewalk and 2nd and a half. Regardless.
Regardless of this project.
Yes.
Understand.
And Madam Mayor, I think to that point, again, if the discussion is specifically related to a sidewalk, to me, that changes a lot of my perspective on this application, in that why we would want to enter into an agreement with a first-time applicant that is not a subject matter expert in sidewalk design when we can contract with ACHD or someone who is a subject matter in sidewalk design to have the design created for sidewalks. Whereas if the applicant chose not to go through, we're reliant on them to receive the design work to then make the evaluation if we should move forward. To me, it seems like if we're related just to sidewalks, there's a lot of extra unnecessary steps with this particular application than there would be going through normal business practices. Again, if the thought behind this is specifically related to sidewalks. So,
Okay, what am I missing?
Madam Mayor.
why are we working with someone else who's not a subject matter expert for the design of sidewalks when there are clearly other more qualified subject matter experts that can handle the design for sidewalks?
Caleb?
So let me just clarify. I mean, the reason this is before you had an applicant. The city did not apply for the CDBG funds. In the past, we have. Parks has been a potential subrecipient and came to you with a project and said the city wants to do this thing through CDBG. Sean doesn't do any of these projects. He administers the program, right? So if VCD goes away and we still say sidewalks are important, we could potentially have Parks fill that gap and be the subrecipient for this project. Now, my question, Sean, is I don't know if that triggers a substantial amendment or not because you're approving a project, but you're also approving the subrecipient. So it's depending on how the action plan is written. I don't know if it's just as easy if we say we want sidewalks. It doesn't matter who designs the sidewalks. We want sidewalks, right? But I don't know if we can write the action plan that way to say $50,000 for design of sidewalk, or it's $50,000 for design of sidewalk for VCD, essentially. You know what I'm saying? So that's the question. But the reason it's the way it is they applied.
Sure.
It wasn't the city that applied or MDC or anybody else that applied. They're the ones asking. So that's the way it's couched in the action plan currently.
Madam Mayor.
Mr. Palmer?
So then to that, while they applied for it, it appears that almost anybody who cared enough to come and testify, plus the several emails that we got, plus there's more that came while we were in executive session I haven't had a chance to review, that the people have said they don't want us to incentivize this project. There's backup projects, there's other projects that we can spend these funds on that apparently have no controversy tied to them. I think would be the more responsible decision to make than to approve this simply because it was applied for, even though many people came and said, don't incentivize this project.
Madam Mayor, as a response to that, and this is, again, not as an advocate, but just someone who works for the city that manages the program, our consolidated plan for 5 years specifically says that this is something that we probably should do should we be able to enter it. Maybe not a low-income housing tax credit program, but our analysis of impediments has this as a specific barrier, NIMBYism, affordable housing in general. And so that's why they applied, and that's why that they qualified. So just I want to make sure that we're clear that it's not just simply that they applied that they're here. They applied, they qualified, and they're meeting some things that our citizens have already weighed in on 4.5 years ago when we built that consolidated plan. So just so that that's clear.
Thank you. Any other questions for Sean?
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Oh, are you done? Sorry. I was going to close the public hearing. I move that we close the public hearing on the fiscal year 2016 Community Development Block Grant Action Plan.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to close the public hearing on item 11A. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Madam Mayor?
Ms. Mylum?
Move that we approve the resolution number 16-1156. Do you need more than that? Approving the fiscal year 2016 Community Development Block Grant Action Plan for submission to U.S. HUD for review.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Madam Mayor.
Palmer?
That project aside, the reality of the situation is the federal government has no money. My children will not ever even come close to helping pay off what we owe. You wouldn't give a drunk a beer. And so to continue to support the federal government's ridiculous spending spree, I think is the same thing. If we start telling them we're not interested, other people, hopefully they'll stand up and do the same thing, given there's plenty of cities out there that I'm sure would be happy to take the money. I say let them, and we quit feeding the drunk.
Okay, any other comments?
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Kavner?
I think comparing some of those in our community that are needs to that of a drunk is imprudent and borderline insulting to our community. And so, while you can have your own opinions about this, to insult the citizens of Meridian is where I take exception. We have a responsibility to our community, to all of those in Meridian, not just those that elect us, to do what's best to serve them. The applicants have brought forth some proposals, many of which I think have merit. Some I don't believe that do. But to politic and to pontificate and compare our citizens to those of a drunk, I think is a disservice to those who serve and work in our community.
Madam Mayor?
Palmer?
To clarify the twisting of my words, what I mean specifically to those in Washington, D.C. that are mishandling the use of the borrowed funds that they have, not at all those that are the recipients of the funds.
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Byrd?
I take exception to the point that I hope that the gentleman's young kids don't ever have to walk on 2.5 Street without a sidewalk.
You ready for the vote? Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Kavner?
No.
Councilmember Mylum?
Aye.
Councilmember Palmer?
No.
Councilmember Borton?
Aye.
Councilmember Byrd?
Aye.
Thank you, Sean. We appreciate your efforts and
Patience.
yes, your patience.
Madam Mayor, members of council, thank you again for taking a strong look at all of these projects, and I welcome any direct feedback on this plan, and hopefully next year we'll be able to have a little bit more of a robust early conversation about some of these projects. I would certainly like to know what those feelings are earlier on, and I'd like to give them to you earlier on as well. But thank you once again.
Thank you.
Good job, Sean.
Okay, any items for future agendas? If not, I would entertain a motion to adjourn, reconvene into executive session.
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Byrd?
I move we reconvene back into executive session.
Second.
Motion and second to adjourn into executive session. Madam Clerk, will you call roll?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Kavner?
Aye.
Councilmember Mylum?
Aye.
Councilmember Palmer? Councilmember Borton?
Aye.
Councilmember Byrd?
Aye.